Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk episode 727, which is, hold on. I think I should probably just quickly interject with a brief moment of... This is 727, of course, was the legendary Roland Latin version of the 707. I think we can blame probably Gloria Estefan for most of that, because that must have been around the time when there was all of that kind of the Miami sound and the Florida kind of stuff. But anyway, so yes, we've actually got a sort of nomenclature for the show. So, but the show is actually to do with music technology. So I suppose we kicked right off there with the Synthmania demo of the factory presets of the 727. There is no other relevance whatsoever, apart from there is a topic later on, which is also Roland Drum Machine. But I thought I'd run that. Sorry if I'm sounding a little bit tired and weary, but I was out reveling last night, my friend's 60th birthday party, and I got very little sleep, didn't have anything to eat, and you know, all of that stuff. So that's my voice. Lots and lots of talking last night, and very little sleeping, and yeah, and I was working all day in a recording gig, so I was absolutely knackered. So that's where I sound. But I suppose that means I can qualify with some music technology. I want to say thank you very much to all our friends. We've got those in the Discord, we've got them in the IRC chat, we've got them in the YouTubes. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, both Wagyu and Dominic Hawkin, Mr. Wiggly, have done some great work on the behind the scenes to get us these comments. And so if you want to ask if you want to post something that we may be able to get around to later, because we've got a few queued up now, if you type QQ in the live comments it will work on YouTube, Discord, and Twitch. If you type QQ and then a question, it will go into a little filtered list, and we'll be able to keep an eye on it. And if it doesn't make it this week, it might make it next week. And by the same token, if you're thinking of it, or you've got a question lined up that you really want to throw in there, you can actually just tweet it to @Sonicstate with start QQ, and it will get picked up in the same system, and we'll have a list of questions to be going on with. Anyway, that's all the housekeeping going on. Let's get on to some guests. Let's go to Mr. Robin Vincent, first of all. Robin, Molten Music... Well, Molten Modular is Molten... I keep getting it wrong. Molten Music Technology, right? Yeah.
Yeah, what Molten Music Technology will do, but I'm also Molten Modular. I turn myself into different things because I don't know, I feel like I need to describe myself. I'm constantly trying to justify my existence by spinning my name in different ways. So, yeah, and all of that kind of works.
That's funny. Actually, I've got a question for you then. What happened when you go to, adults, you go to a party, some sort of thing where it's parents of people at school, those sort of events that we all go to as grown-ups, and people say, what do you do? What do you tell them that you do? Because I just say I'm a YouTuber because it makes it easier, but it's not strictly true.
No, it's a difficult one. I made the mistake of telling an insurance company that I was a journalist, and that just span everything out into some kind of disaster because they couldn't find a box to tick. So I get, I produce content, and they say, well, what does that mean? So, well, I'm a journalist. Well, is that what? So, is that in print? Well, sometimes YouTube, sometimes this. I don't know which box to tick. This poor insurance salesman was trying to work it out. So I don't know. YouTuber feels odd. I mean, I'm 51, for heaven's sake.
I know, but what I like is it sort of shocks people. You go, what? Really?
Yes.
Thought, what? So you're like an influencer? And I go, no, but yeah.
It's great for your kids at school, though, when they share that sort of information.
Yeah. Dad,
it's almost as good as being an astronaut.
Anyway, Robin, lovely to have you. I'm glad you made it in. I know it was a bit short notice this week because I'd sort of dropped the ball because of all the other commitments. We've also got Mr. Yoad Nevo there, Nevo Sound. Yoad, of course, mixer par excellence and producer and developer for Waves, surround sound mixer, all of those things. How are you? Actually, last time I saw you, Yoad, it was in the basement of a rather shabby but kind of delightful Soho bar, which we were at for the Roland.
Oh yeah,
the Roland gig.
That was lovely, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was. It was really nice. Did we ever find out what it was called? Because it was just a really random sort of. It didn't really have a name, did it?
No, I doubt if we'll find it ever again. But yeah, it was nice.
Yeah. Are you busy? You got stuff on? You got a lot going on?
Yeah, I have so much on that jumping from one thing to another, and my brain is going yeah, it's really overcharged, but there's a buzz to it, so I kind of enjoying
Yeah.
it, and I like getting into something, doing some work. Unfortunately, I don't have the satisfaction of finishing stuff because a lot of things are big projects, and the wave stuff, but also in the music and mixing. So it's not like, that's what I like about mastering, that it's like
It's
bang
done.
bang, you do it, you get into it for like whatever, however long it takes. Sometimes it takes very short time, you just get it and you do it and it's out of the way and you feel like you've done something. But all these big projects, it's a little bit yeah, but yeah, no, not complaining. I'm loving
I
it, actually.
understand. It's the creative cycle. That's the thing that attracted me to the internet, really, because it's like, I've got an idea. I'm going to write something down and I'm going to post it, and it's sort of done. You kind of go whoa, and then you can see what happens to it. But I totally get that the creative cycle can be very long with big projects. God, I look very green, don't I? No, I don't know. I can't stop messing with colour now. Anyway, lovely to have you, Yoad, and we have also Mr. Gaz Waldo Williamson. How are you, Gaz? Bass player, YouTuber. In fact, you got a show tonight, haven't you? That you wanted to tell people about, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And 8 p.m. tonight, so the Gaz Williams show. And I've got Modalix joining me. That's Eyal, Amir, or Lubyanica. They're going to be joining me to talk about their new plugin called Beat Scholar, which is a drum machine program, I guess. It works as a plugin, VST, AU, AX, or a standalone. But what makes it interesting, I think, is the quite uniquely musician sort of developed idea behind it. It's a different approach to programming a drum machine, and I think I've been really blown away by it. So the thing about those guys is I saw them play, I'm going to talk about this on the show tonight, but I saw them play as their band Project RNL supporting Osric Tentacles a few years ago, and they are one of the greatest bunch of musicians I've ever seen in my life. They're absolutely brilliant. So the keyboard player and bass player of that band have developed this sort of drum software, and it really is very, very interesting. It's called, I say, Beat Scholar. So yeah, more about that later. But also we're going to be talking about musical influences and maybe sort of the path to how they came to develop that. So, but I should mention, though, immediately after that show, there will be a live stream from Robin. So he's kindly moved aside a little bit for me. Yeah. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's all right. Bumped it back a little bit. I mean, my stream is a much less important or weighty, I think. The idea is that I've been sent a whole bunch of stuff over the summer that I haven't got around to plug it in. So I'm just going to plug it in and see if any of it makes noise. So that's this evening's consequential
like
live stream.
Yeah. I did see you posted on Facebook. Sorry, I did see you posted Facebook with the Hornets. I hope they're not in your shed because I'm a bit worried about them. That's all.
No, that was down by the house, thankfully, and they were local Hornets as opposed to tourist
marauding.
Hornets.
They weren't. They
yes.
weren't. Yeah,
they weren't murder.
Sorry,
murder
guys.
beetles.
Just want to.
Yeah.
I just want to plug the show that I'm doing on Saturday in Birmingham. It's called Drone Bath. It's a really, really interesting one, this. So if you're anywhere near Birmingham, or I reckon it's worth traveling for, but essentially Victorian baths. I mean, these are like bathtubs, different cubicles that have been preserved as a kind of heritage site. Birmingham, of course, was the seat of industry, really, in Britain, and took a great pride in their manufacturing and whatnot. So these baths, it's where they went to kind of scrub themselves clean once a week, maybe. They've been preserved, and so you've got all these like cubicles, which are tiled, really old-fashioned tiled cubicles. Now, these cubicles don't have ceilings, but so what's going to happen is there's going to be about 15 different musicians scattered through various ones of these cubicles, all playing different kind of synths and modular and all sorts of things, making it's like drones. Now, so the sound will kind of come out through the ceiling, and then it's a very tiny sort of environment. So, ordinarily, music isn't going to work very well in such a place, but this is quite an interesting use of the space. And there's going to be lights and lasers as well. But what's going to be also cool is as you wander through it, some of the cubicles will be empty, and some of the cubicles you'll find musicians in there. Steve Davis is going to be taking part.
I hope you won't find anybody changing, getting ready to go into the baths either. Or maybe they'll throw a few.
Someone having a bath. That's funny. But also John Biddulph is going to be, who's I think familiar to some of the Sonic audience, and Finlay Shakespeare is also going to be taking part, and a whole bunch of other people.
Oh, nice.
So, around 15 of us, and also though we don't know what we're going to be given a set of rules. I think John Biddulph has been creating some rules, but those rules, there's also going to be some rules for the spectators or the audience or whatever. I think to do with maybe maps, suggested pathways to wander through this labyrinth of cubicles. Such a unique event. So that's Moseley Road Baths on Birmingham from 6 p.m.
We posted the link. 6 p.m. on Saturday. Okay. Nice
yeah.
one. Just for those of you who might be interested, Cheapo Car Company, Johnny Depp bought an old Victorian bathtub in a Norwich shop not long ago, which I guess might be relevant to you, Robin. I don't know why. I just thought there's two reasons. I wanted to test our comments, to screen system, and I also thought it was an amusing title anyway. Amusing thing to post.
There's a bleeding shortage of Victorian baths in Norwich, God, just when you think one comes up.
Buying them all up.
That geezer comes waltzing in, flipping it.
Paying, inflating the prices. Yeah. God, bloody hell. Right, okay, let's see what we've got. I thought we'd start. Let's start. Yeah, now, I apologise for this because I downloaded the video and it was shot in kind of TikTok fashion, and basically it means it's all wrong. We'll have a little bit of this.
So we've got piano.
Jacob Collier going through this Steinway.
Got Nord.
He takes on the road. It's not hired at each gig. It's actually brought everywhere he's going. So he's on tour at the moment.
A few different sounds.
But it's a really interesting tour. He goes through that because, as we know, Jacob Collier, multi-instrumentalist, multi-Grammy winner now, multi-Grammy nominated. Sort of a little bit of a kind of... pretty damn good at everything, and I don't know if you've been following. He's been posting. There's been some stuff posted from his gigs, and one of the things that was really fascinating. I forget the name of the tune now, but it was this massive. The entire audience singing along. He's running around playing bass for a bit, then someone takes over the bass. A mixing nightmare, but it sounded absolutely amazing. The name of the guy, Jose Hiltega, is doing front of house. I don't think I've ever heard a mix so accomplished. It sort of reminds me of those live Zappa mixes where there was just so much going on and it was all really well mixed. It's a really fascinating thing, and it's nice to see they're using Seventh Heaven and the Microshift, which is Sound Toys as well. I just thought it was kind of fascinating. Has anyone seen Jacob Collier on any of his recent gigs? Oh, you have, Gaz. Okay, well that's a good start.
Yeah.
Great video though. You really got. It's like 45 minutes long, and it's just like, ooh, look.
Yes, what an incredible band though as well. I think some of you might have seen, I posted a little video when I went to see him in Bristol. They were just about to come on, and then there was a power cut. And I think the power cut it wasn't just in the building. I think it was the area. And so we were all waiting. Anyway, they came on stage to say, unfortunately, Jacob isn't going to be, actually Jacob came on stage and said, I'm really sorry, but we can't play because there's no power. So everybody sort of trudged out of the building. I went up to the multi-story car park, which overlooks the street, and then I just heard a bit of noise and looked down in the street, and sure enough, Jacob had set up outside his tour bus with an impromptu bunch of equipment and did a little gig in the street.
Wow.
And I just thought that was so, how many people would have
it's the right thing to do, isn't it? It's sort of...
Yeah. So enjoyed watching it. So I filmed a little bit of it. I streamed it a little bit of it just because I thought it'd be good to capture some of that moment because it was such a unique thing. But then actually he went back looking over the edge and going, actually, it looks like people are going back in. And man, the power had come back on, and he managed to the concert managed to take place after all, albeit slightly abbreviated. Yeah, so double, so we had like a double dosing really. But yeah, I just thought that way that he could get it together to do that thing, and he had everybody singing, and he was conducting everybody in the street.
I mean, there's something that the only thing I will say about him, he's so good and so fluent. Sometimes I feel a little bit kind of like jealous, I suppose. I feel almost like this kind of, oh, come on, can you just be bad at something? Can you have a down day? In fact, I think Lady Aptitude, I love Jacob Collier, but find him exhausting. It's like non-stop 11. I mean, and there is that, I think, to a degree. But
most of my friends don't like his music, don't like him.
Right,
which is kind of peculiar because he gives.
Well, it's sort of clever rather than emotive, isn't it? I suppose in many ways.
Well, you say
both,
that. I mean, when you see him do the Tiny Desk concert, which is him playing his very gentle, very emotive, beautiful material. So, pretty much any criticism, he has a musical kind of answer to it, really. But some people, they don't like his voice. And I thought that was really interesting because he's a virtuoso on all his instruments. But if that voice doesn't connect, all of that stuff kind of falls away. It's quite a funny one. That
thing. Yeah, he does have a distinctive voice. I think it would be fair to say. I know. Yoad, have you ever had? I mean, have you done some live mixing? I can't remember whether we've ever discussed this before.
Yeah, I used to, and I actually talking about the Steinway piano on stage. I worked in on this production, and we had a Steinway, like not a Steinway, but a grand piano body that was emptied, and where the keyboards are, they put an RD whatever 9 or whatever it was back then, like Roland. So you see like a grand piano on stage, and it looks great and everything, but you don't have to tune it, and it's much lighter and everything. So that was
that's a trick. I think a lot of people do that. Can you imagine having to lug a Steinway around and kind of tune it? I mean, just the amount of money it must cost just in piano tech and shipping to move that thing around. Terrifying, but they do it. I mean, fantastic. I know, Robin. Sorry. No,
I'm saying,
on. Sorry,
not to mention the microphones and all that involves in, with recording a rock band, especially when you want to have the lid open because it looks good and it sounds good, but then you have all the drums in and you have to, so most of the times it will be shut anyway with PZMs inside, so you kind of, anyway.
I didn't notice whether it was open or closed, but it's at the front of the stage, so I suppose it would be better. You'd have audience spill. I know, Robin, have you... I mean, there's a lot of tech going. I mean, I imagine being a tech on that show. It looks like it's really good fun, but it must be also... And, like we all have days where you're a bit tired, and I imagine Jacob is just boundlessly full of energy, and sometimes you're like, yeah, all right, I'll try and sort that out right away. But I guess it might be buoy you up a little bit as well, so that's got to be good. But
well, it must be very gig ready. There's no room for things not quite working, so it must all come together really well. I mean, I'm just annoyed he hasn't aged at all. I mean, he could at least do that. If he's brilliant at everything else, he can't possibly be holding back time. That doesn't seem fair.
I don't know. But
I did enjoy the spoons, whatever they were about, and respect for the shirt, as always.
Yeah, and the trousers. The loud pantalons is always well known for that. But yeah, a great video if you get a chance to check it out. And it's just it's sort of. It's just an affirmation of the essence of Jacob Collier, which is like Tigger, basically, but musical.
Nick, can I just say one thing very briefly? You're talking about taking a Steinway on the road. In terms of taking out a massive piece of kit on the road, obviously the Grateful Dead took their Wall of Sound PA out in the 70s, and there's a fantastic Netflix 6-part documentary about the Grateful Dead called Long Strange Trip, and in one of the episodes there's quite a decent amount sort of dedicated to talking about the Wall of Sound PA, which is just like the most ludicrous thing to ever, especially given the time. But just very briefly, the bass player, Phil Lesh, his pickups, he had individual outputs for each of the strings, and essentially like a proto line array for each each string across the stage, sort of, I don't know, 20 speakers for each string.
Oh, for goodness sake. Well, I suppose if you're that big and you're doing that much stuff, you can kind of get away with it. But there is an. I mean, I think with Jacob Collier, it's not about pomp and kind of progness. It's just the band is massive, but there are very few of these kind of band. There's obviously Zappa's band. There's Jacob Collier's band. There are some bands which just have this Prince's band. Are just these kind of amazingly well put together and really tight units, and I think they're very there's a real kind of you don't get a lot of that, I suppose, is what we're saying these days. It's good to see. I think we're going to just have a little word from our friends over at I'll press this button. I can't remember which is which now because I like I say, I was up late last night. Here we go. It's Baby Audio. Brilliant. No, that's not what I want. It's this one. Baby Audio, yes. So Baby Audio makes creative effects and plugins designed to add colour and depth to your mixes. They were plugin of the year 2021 in Future Music. Try the iHeart New York 2 punchy parallel compressor VST AU AX engineered for modern aggressive compression sound. 44% off intro sale. I think it's still going. You also get 15% off with checking out with the code ST15. If you head over to babyaudio.com, then they will be able to furnish you. We thank them very much for their support, and do check it out. It's all good stuff. Anyway, so right, what else have we got? Another topic. Gosh, that's the problem when you operating heavy machinery when you kind of hadn't had any sleep. That's what I feel like I'm doing at the moment. Oh, here we go. This is a bit random. This is kind of quite a unique concept. So let's take a look. This is the Silhouette Eins, which is by Pit Prinzigoda. It's now close to shipping. We saw this at Super Booth. This is 7 sounds from it. It looks fantastic. It's got like a kind of light sensitive place where you put kind of lights, I guess, bars, and it drives the oscillators, and it's just visually it looks like a real lot of fun. It's $4,000 mine, but these things are just really interesting. And it's a fairly unique way of doing things. I mean, because Opto's used in quite a lot of electronics, I suppose, but not generally in sound source. We use it in in fact, they use Optos in I think it was in the VCAs on the Malevolent, I believe, but also you got Opto compressors and whatnot. But this is kind of, I just thought it was kind of fun. We have seen it before, but visually it's quite stunning. Robin, did you get to see this at Super Booth? I mean, it's a crowd pleaser, isn't it? Definitely.
It is, yeah. No, I didn't actually see it in the flesh, but I have followed it around a bit virtually. I mean, it was a lot more unwieldy. He seems to have brought it together into some kind of sensible size. The thing that I really like is that panel of plexiglass and the knobs over the top of software, because you've got like a see-through control panel with software behind that's updating, which is like that holy grail of having hardware but with a software updatable display behind it. I think that's a really interesting feature, and of course it means the knobs can be anything. You can just for a flick of the software they can become controlling something else, and it tells you exactly what they are, and the modulation is moving, which is all the best things about software synthesis but attached to a hardware interface. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea, because it's probably cheaper to have one large screen than lots of little individual ones, just from a manufacturer point of view, because you've got a single component, although the software then becomes more complicated, I suppose. I know, Yoad, what do you think? I mean, that's not a bad idea, is it, having a kind of hardware layer over a full screen? I mean, it could just be a cheap TV screen or something. It doesn't necessarily have to be AMOLED or anything.
Yeah, I mean, what really attracted me with that at Super Booth is the way to create wavetables basically on the fly, because when you try to morph, when you try to synthesize from scratch, subtractive or not to mention additive, it's really hard to create complex waveforms which are not based on distortion and things like that, which are just harmonically rich, but things that can evolve and mutate from one thing to another, but maintain their kind of complexity and richness. And with that, because it's optical, so it converts a picture which is quite complex There are a lot of irregularities and when it converts it to whatever it does, harmonic content, pitch, all those things, you have a palette which is already quite complex. And when you modulate it or you scan it, you have a wavetable which is out of the box. It may be random and things like that. You have to find the right stuff to do, because if you do something too complicated, it will be just a mess. It will just sound like
Messy,
white noise. So it has to have, I used to experiment with that years ago in SoundForge. You could import kind of raw files into, and it would convert them into PCM. So I used to draw, it's a little bit like Iris, iZotope, that synth they have, which is kind of a graphic conversion. So yeah, I really like that concept. I think it's a great concept it's a great way of importing basically a lot of data into audio. In a way which is already processed. It's not like sampling the audio, but it's making something else, something useful from it, which is quite hard, especially with complex to find the relationship and to have pitch curve and formant curve and amplitude curve and all those things. These are the kind of more common ways, but I think that what they do here is, I don't know, it sounds good. When I was there, it sounded really good. Just the scanning of of those images in front of the camera. I was really impressed.
Yeah. Nice. I know, Gaz. I think not for everybody. Res Music says looks like another synth that makes crap sounds 4K of eye candy. There is no doubt that it is eye candy, but actually, what I think is really interesting is what Robin was saying about this idea of the hardware and software, because it sounds great. I mean, it would be a lovely thing to play, wouldn't it? You could imagine somebody who's perhaps more visually, who doesn't have a lot of visual stuff going on and moves over to that, and for a live stream or for a big sort of diamond vision above the stage, so it'd be quite visually stimulating. And whether it sounds good or not, I don't know. But
the visuals and the audio, they need to really correlate to each other, so you get this real sense of what you see is what you hear. And the danger, I guess this is something we're all touching on, that if you take plasticine and you try to make something in plasticine, initially, quite simple things, but then it all starts to merge together and just turn to brown kind of gloop. Sort of, I think it's sort of similar to, the danger is there. It's so easy for it to kind of just,
yes.
But I think though, anything that is, if you were seeing that live, you'd want to see very clearly the visual aspect of it for it to kind of make sense. Otherwise, I guess it's just, that's its selling point. I saw something on Twitter recently that I retweeted a sound that NASA had released, saying it's like, here's a sound from space, but really it was like an FFT sweep across a picture of of a nebula. But the thing that was interesting there, though, was that the sound. So NASA were being a little bit disingenuous, kind of saying it was a sound from space, as opposed to a sound made from space. But that, at least though, you can, as you can watch that little video and you can see the kind of playhead essentially moving around clockwise across this nebula, and all the sound changes and morphs. But you can, what you see and hear has that kind of correlation.
You don't know what it's doing, but it's doing something in real time. Is that effectively?
It sounds and looks as one, yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. But I mean, I just love things like this, though. And, it's great that people put such a lot of effort into making these things.
I know, it's a lot of money. $4,000 seems kind of pricey for this, but I guess one-off, bespoke, it's, that's the way it goes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd
Interesting. I thought it was I thought it was good. Yeah, it was a good one. There's lots of apparently Native Instruments just released Contact 14, a complete 14, which again I missed. We can perhaps talk about that another time. But hey, what the hell? We'll get onto that at another point. So right, let's see what the time is now. Yeah, we'll do this one. I think this is because this kind of ties in with the initial thought of the drum machines, of the 727, and this is the TR8S. So the TR8S has had a version 2 update, which gives it FM voices. It gives it ultra expressive macro control lets you sweep through
Roland TR8S 2.0
tonal variation and also new effects algorithms as well. Oh, I haven't got a link for that. I beg your pardon. We'll run for that. We've spoken to this about this before, haven't we? The TR8S seems to be or has been this kind of the sweet spot. If you're going to buy a modern drum machine, it's not the TR8, it's the TR8S because you've got sample playback as well, and it's like a proper. I suppose it's sort of. It would be a great drum machine to have in the 90s if it had been around because it's samples and sequences and you get all of that. I dare say, Robin, there are 727 samples that you can have in it as well.
There probably are. I mean, I would like to point out it's actually the 2.5 update.
Oh, 2.5.
So you may have spoken about it before when it was 2.0 because that's when they introduced the FM drums. But with the 2.5, which I think is what you mean. They've introduced editing to those FM drums. So you've now got the ACB version of the old TR stuff. You've got sample stuff, and now you've got an FM synthesis engine that you can actually tweak through some kind of movement of faders and stuff. I suspect. I don't know the drum machine.
Thank goodness you're here, Robin, because obviously I completely cocked that topic up. I do apologise, everybody, but thank you, Robin. You've put me right and given the right information out, which I think is an important. Good job, you're a proper Joe. Thank you very much. But it's interesting. I mean, Gaz, when we saw the demo of this, I mean, we've spoken about it before. It's like really does feel. I'm sort of almost tempted. I mean, I don't like drum machines very much, but I'm almost tempted by this. I don't know why. I've got it doesn't seem, but it seems.
It's the best drum machine Roland have ever made.
Ooh, okay.
I think so because it can really get super close to the 808s and the 909s, but I think it's just got a really great workflow, and the way that they've expanded it is fantastic. It's really good. I mean, when they put, in the 2.0 release, I remember when that came out in the FM expansion. So now that's kind of cracking it open and turning it into such a creative device. I think they're, I think they just got it right. But a lot of people, though, and I can kind of concur, is that the TR6S, the little one, that's also just right as well in terms of the form factor and the amount of options and creativity and performability. I think they've got
just 6 channels, isn't it? Essentially, yeah.
Yes, cut down in quite a few ways, but the underlying Zen Core engine in there, I think you can pass things back and forth. I'm not sure if the FM goes across to the 6, but just when you sit in front of the 8S, though, there's something very just very fun and immediate and gratifying, and I think that's what drum machines need to have. Otherwise you just use a computer. It has to have that playability, it has to have that unique thing, and this one absolutely does. So great that they're continuing to develop it. It didn't seem that long between the TR8 and the TR8S, but I think the TR8 was almost just made obsolete when the TR8S came out. It's just it bettered it in so many ways. But yeah, what's the list price on them now?
I'm just looking it up now. 586. So around about, I don't know what it is in dollars. It's probably going to be similar to in dollars, I would imagine, sort of $600, 600 quid, something like that.
What is the maximum sample time per sort of kit?
Oh, don't. Yeah, it's probably going to be something really weirdly Roland restrictive. And just kind of it's almost great, but actually it's not quite that great. But yeah, that's. I know, Yoad. I know you famously, you set up great kind of environments within Logic to be able to program beat. Is there or has there been a drum machine that you still have, that you would reach for, given if you had to use it over what you're using in software?
That the way I work is in front of the computer, and I have the BeatStep Pro, which has, we did a video on it. Each button for each pad has 128 samples already from the get-go, and I can do the step sequencing and all that from here, change, have access to all these sounds on the fly, like after it's been programmed because of the environment thing with Logic. So it changes samples on the EXS. So I have 128 kicks, snares, so I can't be tempted with the drum machine
Right.
in my workflow. And it's here, and it's integrated, and it's recorded, and I have the probability and the randomness of which I really like on that. So you dial it in and you record like 5 minutes of a drum pattern with some irregularities and stuff like that, and then you choose, plus the fact that you can change the samples after it's been recorded to MIDI. All those things for me are really important in my workflow, and I don't really use kind of pattern-based sequencing that much, apart from when I do stuff like that on this, and record it in and chop it up. But usually it's I would loop stuff up, of course, but I don't need an external kind of thing to produce sound. That's for sure. And yeah, you know what I mean. So just to justify something like that just because of the programming capabilities is also not something that I can. So
no, well, you've got a great system there, which is actually, that's a pretty cool thing. I mean, and I think that's something that would be great to replicate in it, because changing sample, just program and beat quickly and then really flipping through the samples on a
because it's always the sounds. It's always the sounds. You're stuck with the sounds, and it's the browsing and the accessibility of having thousands of sounds, which I don't necessarily go through each one, but it's kind of it triggers kind of intuition. You do that, and it will bring you somewhere you didn't expect, but you wanted to get to. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Because
and
you've created those sounds in the first place anyway, so they're yours, and you've already made a choice that these are all good sounds. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Interesting. Anyway, well, the TR8S version 2.5, thank you very much, Robin, is available now, and I imagine it's a free download. I haven't even bothered to find that out, which is, again, just my shabby preparation. I do apologise. That's very shabby. Oh yes, and that lower third there. Oh no, that's Mr. Wiggly. Check out Argonaut. Probably what I just talked. I think that must have been a typo. Okay, I missed that one. Right. Okay. Well, I think it's probably time to have a word from our friends over at iZotope. So here they come.
Producers Club is a one-of-a-kind membership for producers ready to take their tracks to the next level. Once you join, you'll gain access to powerhouse iZotope plugins and a curated selection of tools from our partners, such as Melodyne from Celemony. Plus, as long as you're a member, you'll get every future update to the iZotope plugins in your membership for no extra cost. We'll also regularly serve you new curated content like exclusive, inspiration-sparking sample packs and preset packs, and industry-leading training ranging from our own tutorials to vocal production lessons from the world-renowned Berklee Online, taught by Grammy-winning producer and engineer Prince Charles Alexander. With new content being added every month full of valuable production techniques, tips and tricks, and solutions to common production problems, becoming a member is an investment in your career that grows as you and your career do. For more information on iZotope Producers Club, head to iZotope.com.
And once again, we thank them for their support of the show. In fact, I think there's some deals on at the moment if you're interested. RX10 is here, and I think there's a bunch of stuff on sale. But if you want to save even more, you can use the code Sonic10 to get 10% off any software purchase there. Thank you very much for the continued support. Okay, let's see where we are now. Gosh, unless there's a topic we really want to get to, there are actually a bunch of questions that we've got in from people. How does everybody feel about moving on to questions? Is there, because in the summer we usually have a dearth of topics, but now we've actually got some, and we've also got questions, which is awesome. So I think we're going to go with a few questions, because I think that for me is it's jolly good fun as well. So there's a great one which is came in from midierror, so I'm just going to throw that one up, which I think is absolutely awesome. So now this I guess we might need to save the some of the details to protect the innocent in this situation. But basically, this question is from midierror, who does a bit of writing for us, and he said, what's the most expensive piece of gear you've dropped, fallen on, basically broken by accident when it's in your care? I knew Gaz would have a groan there. I'm going to go first, because it's really more to do with I was when we first started out, we did this Tom's Diner remix, and we were taken to New York, and we basically were in Suzanne's private studio, and with I'm trying to remember the name, Anton. I'm forgetting the name of the producer now, but he said, "Oh, stick the tape on." So I stuck the tape on, and I rewound it all the way back, so it was tail out. So I left the actual. It was an Otari, and I'd left the head guard up, and I'd rotated the tape around the head guard and zipped it right through. And this was before we'd even started anything, and I thought, oh my God, I've just shredded the only multi-track of the whole reason that we're here, and I feel I didn't say anything, and I was just sort of sitting there, because I was only about 19, 20, and I was just thinking, oh my God, I've completely ruined everything. And we came in afterwards, and he played it, and it was fine, and I was like, phew. But that was the closest thing I came to a complete, I've just trashed the entire session. Gaz, you groaned, so therefore you must have something that you need to.
Well, everyone knows about mine, surely. Well, live on Sonictalk. When
your mic and your keys.
Yeah, and then Rode NTK, yeah, Valve mic took a tumble and smashed into the Studio Logic sledge, breaking a key, and broke the head off the microphone, all whilst I had in-ears. And that was the funny bit about that particular show, is I was just trying out my in-ears for the first time on the show, which form such a seal, so you don't hear any noise whatsoever. I think that was all the funniest bit about it was that all that stuff happened and made an enormous bang, and you turned to me and said, "Kaz, is everything all right?" And I'm going, "Yeah," because I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything.
Oh, because you had your headphones on, didn't you? We just saw it behind you, didn't we? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so everyone heard it, except for, I was like, yeah, what? And then I turned around and saw all the carnage. It's like, oh no.
Oh, yes.
So, yes,
Live
classic Sonic moment.
Well, it does happen, doesn't it? It does happen. I don't know, Robin, how about you? I mean, we get a lot of stuff in for review. Sometimes it's expensive. Sometimes, things happen. I don't think I've broken anything. Certainly not intentionally, or obviously never intentionally, but I don't think I have.
Never intentionally.
Got any
Not
any pratfalls with expensive equipment?
Well, the only thing that springs to mind is back in the last century, I used to do NAMM, and we were there with Turnkey and Media Tools, and I was running the Carillon audio system stand. And we were there for like 3 days building this extraordinary stand out of bits of old plywood that we'd shipped from London to Anaheim, and knocking the whole thing together. And the piece de resistance was this enormous flat screen, which they were rare at the time, I think. And it was, all our software and bits and pieces were going to be up on this so we can demo the system. And it just sort of sat there leaning against part of the stand. And we were banging nails in and trying to get other bits to work. And it just all by itself somehow rolled over, just softly onto some carpet. Picked it up, the whole thing was shattered. And this was the day before. This was like the Thursday or something, and everything was just it was just about to go up. So it was pricey to rent one in those days too, because it was as I say, it was a nice piece of gear. So that one springs to mind. And I didn't touch it. I'm sure it wasn't me that touched it. It was Neil.
It wasn't me.
No, it was
Yeah,
those
it wasn't
union
me.
guys. That's where it was.
Yeah, well, because you brought the stuff with you, which you're not supposed to do. You know, you're supposed to. It's all got to come through the carpenter and all of that stuff. Yeah,
Yes,
you broke the Teamsters line there. That's probably well. I mean, who am I to make such an accusation? Yoad, how about yourself? I mean, you seem to have everything sort of very. You know, I don't see things balanced precariously on top of each other in your studio, where one might in another place. But I'm sure you might have something.
I have quite a few, but I'll throughout the years, it's just I've been in so many sessions and so many weird things happened and stuff. But one thing that in what Gaz's story, I remember one time we were recording kind of weird percussion-y stuff, and there was like half a barrel filled with water. That they used to make kind of weird sound effects and things like that.
Yeah.
And that was part of the session, and there was a Neumann mic, and it fell like right onto the thing. And the shock the shock map, we went like this, just almost touching the water, but not. That was a really close call. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's there are. I mean, there are numbers and numbers of these things. I mean, there's also sort of live stuff, isn't there, where things break and you've got to sort of improvise until it's like strings going, straps going, leads going, all of that kind of stuff. In fact, I'm sure I've seen that with you, Gaz, where you've just been kind of you have to balance the bass on your knee because the strap comes off and it's right in the middle of the breakdown where it's really.
Yeah, worse than that. We were playing. It was a really big gig playing with Charlotte Church. It was it's going so well. Everything was great. I have a tendency to sort of get a bit overexcited on stage, and I did a big jump, and I think my the thing ripped on the. It's always risky leaning over to grab things. That's what caused that accident before.
Careful now.
It ripped on here. It just
right.
Oh no, yeah, it just ripped. So the bass went down, but what it did was it landed on the jack plug and it broke the jack plug inside the bass. So then we were like, so some techs ran on to try and help, and they're trying to get we had to get it because the jack plug had sort of broken off inside the bass.
Oh, you need special skinny nose pliers, don't you? Yeah.
Charlotte was brilliant though. She kind of sort of did some a cappella singing with the crowd, and what happens here is something quite good. When something goes wrong, the audience, I don't know, they become part of the show more. They kind of relate. Like in the very first ever silent gig, my band did the first silent gig. We are the originators. We are the first. And when we were doing it, we did 2 performances, and the first performance was for press. This was in the year 2000, and I have told this story before. I apologize, but I mean it's kind of relevant in this way. Just that we did this big, long, atmospheric introduction. We had lead drums, which was still quite new at the time. And there's a guy, Roland supplied all the equipment, and we had all that kind of surroundy sort of headphone mix going on. Everybody in the audience was on headphones. And this was quite groundbreaking at the time, I guess, technologically. And anyway, we're doing this thing. We did an elongated opening and really atmospheric. And then the big moment, it was like my band Rocket Gold Star, the song, I come in with the drums and everything comes crashing in, and I just come in this big vocal, and just on the downbeat I stood on the cable, which pulled my cable out of my headphones.
You couldn't hear anything.
I can't hear it. So it's not just like pulling your cable out, it's like you're cut off entirely from everything. It's like right at that moment. I mean, egg face. Yes, I was egg face maximum. But we had to sort of I had to stop and start again. And it's really embarrassing, but that's when that thing happens at the audience. It's all a little bit weird, and everyone's a bit uncomfortable. it's a very unusual.
But they
thing.
Share it, yeah. But exactly, yeah.
And then they see this, and then everything sort of relaxes a little bit, and everybody enjoys it a bit more. So, as mortifying as it is for the performer, that audience bond, the audience generally don't want to see you fail most of the time. Some of the time.
Okay, well, we've got a comment in from Nick Howes, a regular commenter here. Hopefully get him on the show at some point. He dropped a 520 ST, that's an Atari, on a hotel lobby in Malta, Ultravox 520 ST, which ran the whole show using C-Lab Creator. Thankfully, it still worked. I could imagine that was a sketchy moment. That would have really, that's the cold sweats. I bet it's that, there's a smell of fear, isn't there? And I expect you probably had it about you at that point. Okay. Well, there's another question coming up here. This is from Sharon Lerner's channel. Oh no, that's this one. I do beg your pardon. Sharon Lerner's channel. What are your thoughts on the Osmos keyboard? Because obviously we know it's been something that's been trailed for a long time. And are we going to see? We're going to get it soon, or will there be a review? Well, I can answer some of that straight away. Yes, I will review it if it arrives, when it arrives. And I do know it's going there. I mean, you've got to pity them, really. They've got this amazing product that requires custom manufacture, custom fabrication, and they've just fallen from sort of disaster to disaster. That's really sort of nothing of their own doing. I do know there's somebody that we worked with at one company that's gone to work for them, so I know the company's still going, and they're still gearing up for their release. And obviously, all of their Kickstarter stuff, they must have done all those sales at the price that things were then, and now they're probably 3 times as much. So it's a nightmare. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I know, Yoad, did you see the Osmos? I mean, it's a really impressive idea for an instrument, isn't it? The Osmos.
Is that the keyboard with the multi-touch kind of thing?
But it's actually it's actually got a hardware keyboard and keyboard. It's sort of it goes.
Yeah. It was very impressive, and I wouldn't mind trying one. To see how it really interacts. What's the how
it's
it
great
differs
to play, I can tell you.
polyphonic aftertouch,
it's very playable, or it was in the last incarnation I saw of it, and it's got the Egan Matrix sound engine in it, which just is so built for expression and whatnot. Yeah, it's lovely. I know, Robin, being in the news game with Gear News and whatnot, you must sort of hear things. I mean, it's tragic what they've had to go through, but it still looks like it's on, so it's just not yet. Maybe towards the end of the year, I hope.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's enormously impressive. We fight around with MPE controllers. It's always about spongy stuff, and so actually having something with mechanical keys, or at least the feel of mechanical keys, is pretty awesome. So I mean, as everyone who I've seen who's touched one is completely in awe of it. So it should do really well if only they can get it out the door.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, Gaz, I mean, we were very fortunate to get early looks, and we've been sort of kept in the loop quite a lot. So, there just hasn't been much information recently, unfortunately.
I mean, come on. It is, as I said at the time, and it is the most impressive piece of music technology I've ever experienced, in terms of channeling human emotion into, a relatable human feeling into a very, very responsive musical output. The thing that is especially cool is that you can use the most gossamer touch, the lightest touch on the keys, and be able to trigger a very quiet sound, be able to apply pressure, and then come back to the softest thing. It's so utterly responsive. But I think as well, just the way that it's so embedded into the Egan Matrix, the software, it makes it so it's just a marriage made in heaven. Now, what I'm really interested to see, because that in its standalone sense, it works. It doesn't, it doesn't need anything else, and that would probably be enough. Just that, but really keen to see how it works and how well it plays with other things now. And I'm kind of curious to see if it will be MIDI 2.0 from, whether it will be a 2.0 device, because
I would have thought so, but
I would have thought so too. It would make a lot of sense. And as we've talked before, is that MIDI 2.0 is a little bit slow to you know,
Yeah.
we haven't
It could
seen
be
any.
the catalyst, couldn't it, Gaz? It could be the
Could be the
catalyst.
catalyst.
I think,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah,
That's
and
what
I
I'm
think
looking for.
that would be great. I think that's what we sort of need, is this sort of piece of hardware. Okay, I got another question for you. This is from John Van Eaton via IRC. QQ, this is recording 24-bit or 32-bit floating. Now, for those of you who, like me, who perhaps don't know much about it, as I understand it, there's a whole slew of like the Zoom recorders, the F6 and the F8, which have 32-bit preamps. So basically, you don't need to worry about setting the gain, because the headroom is massive, very low noise floor rather. And so I was talking to a chap yesterday, and he was saying that he was using the F6 to record trees being felled, because you've got kind of very quiet bits, and then you've got this enormous crutch and just the massive dynamic range, and it means that you don't need to set any. That's as I understand. I'm going to come to you, Yoad, because you probably have more of the science about it. I mean, is it practical? I suppose 32-bit. Is it in the preamps or in the actual recording? I'm just kind of curious to.
The preamps would be analog, so there
Yeah.
wouldn't, you won't find any bits there. But if you can tolerate the headroom in a way of having very low noise converters, and at 32-bit you have massive headroom, and so if you apply, it's almost like, with electric cars and things like that, and phones, you don't charge the battery to 100%. You always keep it at 80 or something to protect. So it's almost something like that. So you never get to this to the kind of maximum. So you don't have to worry about limiting and about clipping and things like that. What you do lose in the process is basically bits. So if you record it quite quietly, then you would lose, the math is that it's 6 dB per bit. So if you record something at minus 60, you would lose 10 bits of information, So at 32-bit, you will still have, quite a few bits left. So obviously the noise, there's the factor of noise, because you would then need to re-amplify it back to kind of nominal level. So, or boost it by 40 dB or however much it is on the waveform. And so when you record it 24-bit, recording at minus 20 is absolutely fine. Below peak. Below minus 30, or between minus 20 and 30,
Right.
You get it sounds a little bit quantized. It's not really something that you hear, but it's something that you feel, and the whole session is not feeling the same because the waveform is quieter. So you either have to put something to add gain to it, or you change the waveform, or this or that. So, but if you have a way of bringing that up, so for recording, it's fine, because once you finish recording, you can bring the signal up to a nominal level, reducing the bit rate, but you're still fine.
Right, got you. It's interesting, isn't it? I know, Robin, I don't know that multi-track recording is necessarily something that would work so great at 32, but for the location and film work, where you have this enormous dynamic range, where you do get a lot more dynamic range inside a theatre and in the sound system here, because I mean, basically most of us aren't going to be able to tell the difference when it comes down the phone or headphones or Bluetooth compressed anyway. But have you tried any of the 32-bit location recorders? And it's I imagine it's quite miraculous that you just don't need to bother with gain much.
No, I mean, honestly, the nuance is completely lost on me. It's not something that I'm trying to achieve in order to fill bits as such. I mean, honestly, I'm plugging things in. If it's yellow, that looks good to me. Off you go, as opposed to worrying about it too much. But I understand that for some people, it's very, very important. And it's one of those sort of learning opportunities where you go, oh right, yeah, no, that's what bits are about. It's something to do with that headroom. It's like filling up an LED meter, and that starts to make a little bit more sense, because it gets mixed into what digital resolution is all about. And all it really says to me is that's going to use up a heck of a load of disk space. And that's what worries me more at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gaz, I mean, you do a lot of mastering stuff. I mean, do you tend to work, are you working mostly on 24-bit files, or do people bring you 16 and then you up it and get to add the processing? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, all sorts really. But I did make a video on my channel, a number of years ago, about some advantages of using 32-bit float for your mixes, mix downs rather. And the advantage being there is it's like nigh on impossible to clip your mix down. So obviously this is once all your stuff is in the digital domain, and then if you have to create a mix down in a hurry, which is often the case, you kind of rather than having the whole, you're at the end of a session and you trying to so rather than have to wait and play the track all the way through to see if you're clipping at all, render the mix out as a 32-bit float, bring that mix then into your mastering software, and then normalize it, but like almost inverted normalize it. Will take the peaks, it will bring them down to zero rather than up to zero. And that's one of the advantages of 32-bit float then. Sort of now, I mean, I know it sounds like lazy not checking your mix for clipping, but it often is the case. You don't have the time to play it all the way through, so that can be quite a useful time saver, but that means you do have to be aware of that, so to make otherwise it will you will kind of clip your mix further down the line. So if you bring it back down again. One of the things that was interesting with the AXR4 interface from Steinberg was the first commercial interface to record at 32-bit, not 32-bit float. And we did a review for Sonic of that interface. And during that review process, I was trying to think about how can you actually, what could you do to demonstrate some benefit of this 32-bit, because 24-bit is still enormous dynamic range. So what we did in that case, we mic'd up a drum kit, and we mic'd up all the toms. We just put, because there's four mic channels and then 8 line inputs. So we used the line inputs, but putting microphones into the line inputs, and then record at 32-bit. And that was quite an interesting thing, because then, you're getting really quiet. You're getting very quiet recordings, and then bring them up to, like normalize them. Those 32-bit drum line recordings, and actually the drums sounded amazing, because actually a microphone going into a line input you get a better sound than a mic preamp is going to impart certain things on the sound. I think it's I might be completely wrong about this, but
the transformers and stuff, I guess.
You get this really great, they sounded incredibly transient. I suppose the transients were so uncompromised by plugging them into line inputs. So that was just a way of like going, okay, well, if for whatever reason you have to record something extremely quietly, to allow for the greatest amount of dynamic range, and perhaps if you were recording rocket engines or something, I don't know, then 32-bit does have certain values. But 32-bit float, though, as mentioned earlier, though, I think its main purpose, or its best purposes, as I mentioned, is for having unclippable mix downs. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, well, that got a little bit technical, but you asked the questions and we try and answer them as best we can. I think we're probably heading towards the end of the show. We've still got a load more questions in the bag, so, we will get round to them. I'm just sort of trying to figure out how much time to devote to questions and when to use them. Maybe we need to do a kind of catch up on questions episode at some point so we can clear the buffers. I mean, some are timely, some are kind of like, not, so we'll just get round to it. But thank you to all of you who posted your questions, and please do keep them coming. You've just got to put QQ before anything in the comment, and we've got a special filter that will just kind of grab it out there. So there are a number more. I think we'll probably wrap things up at the moment now. So Robin, your live stream is going to be a little bit later tonight, and that's you working on some of the stuff that you've had in for review. Is that right?
Yes. There's a pile of it. Oh, it's directly behind me, so you can't see it. But things like the Malevolent, which you did a review of recently, didn't you? And I've also got the RYK Vector Wave and the LLM ASQ1, things like that. So bits and bobs, which will be fun to plug together. That'll be 9 o'clock-ish this evening. So, come along, see what sort of sounds it will make.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much, Yoad. I guess you're busy, so you got a mix on the go at the moment, or are you you flipping projects after this?
On the stove right now, so
on the stove.
I'll get back to it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Much appreciated. And Gaz, you're going to be going live. What, 8 o'clock? Is that right? On I'm
going to go from 8 till 9, and then hopefully everyone can then shuffle on to watch Robin's show. Yeah, but just another shout out for so the guys, the Modalic guys will be on with me tonight. So looking at Beat Scholar, but also please, if anyone's around, come on Saturday to the Drone Bath in Mosley Road Baths in Birmingham for this super unique event. That'd be great.
Yeah, just posted that link in the show notes again, so it should be available there. But thank you, everybody. It was great. I sort of feel I've perked up a bit. I've been using my voice, and I don't feel quite so hungover anymore. So I feel happy. So thank you, everybody. Thanks to all in the Discord, IRC, and the YouTube chats and everything. And as I say, thank you very much for the questions. Thanks to Wagyu for moderating in the chat, and Dom for no doubt tinkering with the keeping an eye on things with the new system. So we're starting to get there now. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope you both have great shows later. Thank you, Yoad. I hope you get an early night and you can put something on the finished list at the end of this. So nice. Yes. All right. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you very much. We will now switch over. I think I pressed this button. I can't remember. It's only been a week. Hey ho. See you next time. Bye.